When we think of vast colonial empires, the British Empire is often one that springs to mind, but indeed this empire had a very much equally imperialistic sister, the French Empire. What was the legacy of this empire? Why was it important? What were the cultural characteristics? Was it any good? Was it all just a load of evil? From Africa to Cameroon to French Indochina, this is the French Empire. Right, I'll be taking you on a 10-part series, 10 episodes, right from the downfall of Napoleon all the way up to modern day. So 200 years of history, a lot to cover, a lot to crack through. This is the French Empire, and I hope you enjoy this series. War is over, and as you can previously see, the French Empire is now the biggest it has ever been. Imperialistic, nationalistic, and patriotistic fervour reveals around France. Finally, this war is over. Millions have died, and they have won victory. However, not everyone shares this same imperialism or patriotism for the French cause, such as many are now new citizens of this empire, such as, say, Cameroon or, Northern Equatorial Africa or Lebanon, or in this video as we'll be looking at, Syria. Many Syrians do not like the fact they are now under this French rule, and considering under the Sykes-Picot Agreement, the Middle East have been very much lied to. Then again, pretty much every country in the Middle East considered at the end of World War I, Syrians have felt lied to by Sykes-Picot. They wanted their own back, and they wanted independence. No more French protectorate. This is the French Empire, and this is the Franco Syrian War. Sources linked down in the description. Let's begin. During the First World War, French troops had advanced into Ottoman territory under the British plan, and also the Russians, of course, they pulled out to carve up the Ottoman Empire into their own sphere of influence. However, following Turkey's War of Independence, French plans were mostly met, but not quite as well as the British, however, they were still very happy with their Lebanon and Syrian protectorates. However, many Syrians, particularly the King Faisal, and also the leader Yusuf al-Azma, sorry for butchering those names, I'm bad at pronunciation things. So, on the 8th of March 1920, they were unhappy with increased number of French troops in the country, and the fact that, under French rule, when, to be fair, they were promised, independence from the Ottomans, and now they're on the French rule, so what's going on? Fair enough. They declared war on the 8th of March 1920 on the French. A bit of stats for you here. France against Syria, no surprises. French also had, not only were there French troops, also troops from French West Africa fighting for the French. They were led by Alexander Millerand and made up a force of 70,000 troops in total. The Syrians, on the other hand, were made up of Arab militias and Syrians, led by King Faisal, and only had a force of 5,000, just a 14th of the French force. In total, throughout this conflict, actually 5,000 people died. So again, pretty significant. During the war, it was very much sort of hit-and-run tactics by Arab militias. However, during the war, pretty quickly the French were going to win. They controlled much of the country, and it was very easy for them to do so. However, the Arabs did make it very clear they were never going to surrender without a fight at the very least. However, French troops did continue advancing, and the French did very much have the support of the new League of Nations. Few countries objected because they simply saw, everyone wanted to avoid a war at this point again and again. And a day, who would you rather upset, the French or the Syrians, from a sort of international diplomatic point of view? Which is why the French, simply got the international upper hand in support. On the 24th of July, 1920, the war was drawing to a close. However, Yusuf al-Azma wanted one last stand against the French. He knew they were going to lose. They were under-equipped. They did not have the rifles of the French, neither the militaristic tactics, such as the Arab militias. These Arab militias were militias. They weren't well trained. They had one final battle, at the Battle of Maysalun. It was quite brutal. 192 people were killed, and the French, led by Marino Garbet, decisively beat the Syrian force at the Battle of Maysalun, and the war was very quickly over. It only lasted, and it ended on the following day, on the 25th of July 1920, when the French troops secured the Syrian capital, and the entire country was securely a French protectorate. So the war only lasting 4 months. Very much many lines were drawn from it. It secured French control over its Middle Eastern territories, but again, it did very much show the French that their empire did still need modernising, and also culturally respect its now new subjects. Otherwise these rebellions were only going to happen, and these wars were only going to happen more and more often, until they could one day come into something very, very bloody and horrific. But that's later down the series, spoiler alert. And it goes to show that even though World War I is over, the French are very much not, invincible. They can be beaten, they can lose. However, in this instance, they did actually win the war and secure territory, so it is fair enough. As for the Syrians, well, they'd have to wait until 1946 to get independence from France. They'd have to be on the French rule for 28 years, 1918 to 1946. The French at first go with a less fair approach over Syria, but again, because of very much rise of things like Arab and Islamists, the French would have to have more control over Syria to make sure they could withhold the territory during the interwar years. And that is pretty much it. So, any conclusions? Like I said, the French do need to respect their colonial subjects, and also, although World War I is over, not everyone shares this fervour of French patriotism, and the French are going to have to work very, very hard to make control of this empire. And this is where the French Empire starts to differentiate from, say, the British or the Portuguese or even the Spanish. The French Empire was very much at this point not necessarily a show of, oh look at us, we've got all the ships, we've got all this land. It was very much not about territorial show off, but more of a, dare I say, chore. France was trying to, like I say, the French, I said before, the French Empire was very much the mirror, the sister of the British Empire. But for the French, the Empire was less, like I said, about territorial show off and more of a chore. It was trying to, the poor, like, you know what I mean? Like, they were just trying to show, they were on par with the British, or they were on par with the British in terms of territory. They could do as well as them. They had to work incredibly hard to maintain control of all their territory and send many thousands of tens of thousands of troops to withhold them. However, of course, all this great courage is not always, met with human rights. Again, some violations, but again, we'll get into that later episodes. So that was the Franco Syrian War, clearly showing that all aspects and parts of the world were indeed influenced by French rule. And yeah, again, Syria, pretty interesting. This little episode on, a bit of Syrian history, because much of Syrian history is ignored, as I fear. So good I made this video. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.